So satisfying on so many fronts. Villa need to hope Everton survive this year because we've absolutely feasted on them since returning to the Prem. Emi Buendia wants to play them every single week. And I would be worried if I was a Toffees fan. They've got 14 games left, 9 of those 14 against teams in the top 10. To think we were once heavily linked with James Tarkowski and Dwight McNeil, for that matter. Unai Emery, since joining, he's lost 1 away game. That was at Manchester City, and we won the second half of that game. Let's review. It was a satisfying result and a fine performance. Everton 0, Aston Villa 2. Well, the general of Samir's soldiers, Samir Gaby himself made the trek with Villa's traveling entourage, including a couple of Swedish villains, Anna Enhagen and Andres Jutterström. This was probably Samir's last visit to Goodison, hence the Le Coq Sportif jumper. The thought actually crossed my mind, this could be Villa's last ever visit to Goodison in what has been the most played fixture in English football. Enjoy, and thanks as always, Samir. Remarkably, that's Villa's second win in the third kit. And the third kit, along with pretty much everything else, is being absolutely blown out at the Aston Villa online store. I mean, you could go in there, kind of like Dal Hutton did. Dal goes in there, and he buys everything. He's filled his wardrobe. Well, there's my Monday kit, my Tuesday kit, my Wednesday kit. Nice work, Dal, because by using the link below, you're actually helping support the show. I appreciate it. Go fill your boots. I'm just awaiting my Sean Teal blue training gear to arrive. And there was more traveling Villa support royalty in the house at Goodison, as Justin Hawthorne from the Up the Villa podcast was there, like Samir. Fine kit collection, and he provided this and some other snaps and video from the match. Friend of the show, deeply appreciated as we welcome you to the Holy Trinity show. The 3 key issues or moments that defined Everton 0, Aston Villa 2, starting with the key statistics. And a lot of people said that first half was boring. Well, Villa's not there to entertain. They need to mitigate the damage and the adrenaline from the crowd. I looked at Duels 1 as the extra statistics, and that was the only stat category where Everton had the better of us. Everything else went Villa's way, creating 4 big chances. 3 of them to Ollie Watkins. We outpossessed, but we did not outduel. Still, very satisfying, extremely important 3 points to take us now over 30 points in the table. Key issue for me was how Villa was going to respond, not just from the Arsenal game, but also the last 3 games in which they had a pretty decent foothold in a couple of those games and then threw it away. Maybe because of adrenaline or the need or feeling that they had to entertain the crowd somehow at Villa Park and they left themselves imbalanced. I don't know. But they've got to learn how to play at home like they did at Goodison. They were measured, they were mature, and they did control the game, which is something that Unai Emery demands of his team now. And think about it. I mean, Everton is fighting to avoid relegation. They're still on the tail end of a new manager bounce. Yes, they don't have the quality there, but this is the Premier League. Don't tell people, well, they're near the bottom, so you're expected to beat them. No, Goodison is a hostile ground. It's like banana skins everywhere across that park. And yet, Villa held their nerve, kept their composure, acted professionally and turned in a resounding response performance-wise. Key issue, we saw glimpses of the Jacob Ramsey we all know and love, the player who could take the ball and drive the ball and rampage forward. With his runs, he was very effective today, you have to say. And 4-2-3-1 in general was very effective for Aston Villa. It suited the players we had. Ollie Watkins is a 9 focal point. Back-to-goal work was outstanding today. I'll show you that a little bit later on. Then you had another key contributor who I'll talk about later, John McGinn, in the 10 spot. With pace on either side, Ramsey and Bailey, Kamara and Louise shielding the back line. It worked. I mean, we were solid at the back for the most part. I think we doubled Dwight McNeil, who Sean Dyche probably identified as, their focal point because he was being asked to whip the ball into the penalty area. I don't know if he was much of a focal point or very effective, but we managed that situation. And then going forward, we managed to penetrate. I showed you the stats. 4 big chances created. That's decent. That's more than enough to win a game. All in all, it was a very effective game plan that suited the group of players we had. And Jacob Ramsey was one of those players. Key issue for me, playing out of the back. I know Everton doesn't have the strongest forward line right now, but they pressed all over the park. They were aggressive trying to hunt the ball back. And Aston Villa maintained their control. And it's really clear the identity that's emerging here, and that is Villa draws the opponent in, shifts them one way, and then plays either between or around. And they did it a lot. Maybe not perfectly every time, but I have to commend Matt Cash was good at times. So was Tyrone Mings. So were both of the left fullbacks. Okay, not perfect all the time, but for the most part, they navigated the forward pressure, played through it, and then you get into that next phase where they have to decide, are we going to exploit a team that's a little bit open right now? And then they have a whole new way of doing things up front as well. Like, we are finally seeing discernible identity in this squad. It's something else. And if we add more quality to that, hopefully it'll get easier and less stressful for us. Ezri Konsa, that's not his game playing the ball. He defers a lot. He's a chaser and he's cover. But when Diego Carlos comes back, it'll be interesting to see if he comes back into the lineup, because I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get his timing back. Do they play with 3 at the back and push the fullbacks higher? These are all very interesting questions that will be answered very soon, methinks. Key moments. The Martinez save, the tip over the bar. This had to be a bounce-back game for all of Aston Villa, but I feel like Emi Martinez in particular will have not been happy with what happened against Arsenal, his former side, the events that led to the 3-2 goal, the 4-2 goal as well, and then his manager kind of calling him out very publicly after the game. And I think Emi Martinez did respond. A great reaction save. And you think at that point, even though I believe Aston Villa could have still overturned a deficit, especially at that time of the game, you really don't want Everton to sit deep and have to ask Villa to go down and play around. That's not how we are best suited. One of our goals came from transition. One of our goals came from a throw-in, interestingly, the penalty. But for the most part, we have trouble when we have to break down a team in a low block. So that save there, even though it was early-ish, I felt was extremely significant. Key moment, the Jordan Pickford save on Ollie Watkins. This was considered a big chance, very similar to the Emi save, because both headers came from virtually the same spot in the box. And Ollie Watkins does everything mostly right. You're supposed to head the ball down. It's harder to save if you're heading it down, but he heads it down too close to himself. If he heads that down and it bounces closer to the goal line, there is no way Jordan Pickford is getting on the end of that. But hey, credit to the England international who just signed a new contract extension with Everton. He claws it out and does everything from making it an earlier goal for Ollie Watkins. And it would have been a beauty. By the way, do you think Jordan Pickford has a relegation clause in his contract? Key issue number 3 was the scramble survival. I mean, this was comical how the ball did not end up in Aston Villa's goal following a set-piece routine and the seconds from it that included a vicious lashing strike that goes off of Ezri Konsa's back as he's lying next to the goalpost facing the crowd. And then Tyrone Mings tiptoes along the goal line and clears the ball with great composure. Tyrone Mings was a colossus in this game, by the way. 8 out of 8 aerial duels won, 2 out of 2 on the ground. He had 6 clearances and 7 recoveries. He was in with a shout for man of the match and had a very good outing for Aston Villa. But like I said with the Emi Martinez save earlier and even Jordan Pickford's stop on Ollie Watkins, those were defining moments. If the ball goes into the net at this stage from this crazy, scramble that was sensational, quite frankly, well, it would have been very difficult for Villa to have taken all 3 points here because the Everton crowd would have gotten right behind their men. That the Toffees would have sat deep in a low block. We never do well against that. And so to survive this scare, I think was extremely significant. Big issue number 2. Ollie's on. Do you know the last Aston Villa player to rattle off 5 goals in 5 straight games for the senior team in a top division? It was Paul Rideout in 1984. That's what we're talking about here, which means that Ollie Watkins is the first Villa player in Premier League history to score in 5 straight games. That's incredible. I absolutely love this guy. He is a hardworking, he's a dedicated professional. He is humble. His manager said this week that he never, ever stops working. He never stops learning. He's a family man as well. He has Matt Cash over for Sunday roast dinner. How can you not like the guy? And his penalty. Kids need to learn. This is a technique. This taking the deep breath in and then exhaling by puffing out the cheek. By the way, this is his second puffing out of the cheeks. He did it just a few seconds before here. And then he drives the ball into the roof of the net, straight down the middle. He's had an incredible run. Long may it continue. I know that there were a lot of people absolutely pelting this guy, saying that there's no way he's a Premier League striker. And I think the reason why I'm happiest is because he's proving all of us wrong, and I just hope it doesn't stop now. One can only imagine how Villa Nation might have reacted if Watkins was still struggling at this stage, and then Danny Ings goes and scores goals 1 and 2 of his West Ham tenure. I mean, this is why us Villa fans have to learn, and I'm not going to get carried away. But Watkins is a great example that form can change, and the snap reaction condemnations of players can be very premature at times. And long may this continue, because Ollie Watkins is going to be challenged next year. It's pretty clear Villa's going after a pretty big name, or at least high production value striker. So he's going to be challenged. It's going to be an interesting year. And by the way, if you're keeping track, do you know who he's chasing to go 6 goals in 6 straight games? Andy Gray from the 1977 season. That's how deep this run is taking us historically. And the number 1 key issue in Everton 0, Aston Villa 2 was a McGinn masterclass. That expression gets used an awful lot, but honestly, when I saw the lineup in the 4-2-3-1 formation with McGinn playing in behind Ollie Watkins, I was very hopeful because this is a position that I think suits him perfectly. When's the last time we've seen John McGinn come late and score a goal as he's the third man into the box? Haven't seen it for an awful long time, but this is one of those places on the field where he can do that. This is where he plays for Scotland at times. It takes some of the defensive responsibility away from him. However, that didn't mean that he didn't willingly defend. In fact, help double down on a lot of players, including Dwight McNeil. I think that was the game plan. But he had a significant hand in both goals, a great run to draw the penalty, and a beautiful layoff to send off Buendia. And then he made a lot of outstanding penetrating passes like this one early where he basically split open the entire Everton team and gave Villa a very good attacking opportunity. Listen, my mind is not changed on the fact that if Aston Villa truly have ambition, they have to upgrade on players like John McGinn. But if we find the perfect role for him, like this 10 spot, then he could still be very valuable for us, and that's the perfect situation. He also needs to be challenged. He'll need some competition in the role, but that'll just keep making everybody better. Bottom line, McGinn was at his very best and most effective on Saturday. Do you know, not a lot of people have talked about the change of captaincy that occurred after the Manchester City game. I had no problem at all with Emi Martinez wearing the armband. I mean, I think he earned it based on stature and his global exploits, maybe not the off-field ones, but certainly the on-field ones. But after Manchester City, Unai Emery gave it back to John McGinn, and we all remember what a contentious decision that was, and the manner in which it was done to give McGinn the captaincy over Tyrone Mings. It led to a lot of bad feelings and divisions within the room. And credit Unai Emery, he's decided for whatever reason to say, no, you're the captain for Arsenal, you're still going to be the captain for Everton, and John McGinn did not put a foot wrong in this game. He was the man of the match quite comfortably, in my opinion, and on some of the other sites that I saw. He drew the penalty. He set up Emi Buendia. He was doing a lot of really good things. And this is a very interesting dynamic as to what's happened behind the scenes, because you can imagine if you're not in the new manager's plans and you're on the periphery and you're no longer the captain and you've been with the club for a long time, you could end up being a distraction. John McGinn wasn't. Fair play to him. And the number 10 role, in the way it worked out, 4-2-3-1, perfect for him, especially now that Phil Coutinho is going to be out until at least early April with a hamstring problem. You also wonder if Guinea made a cheeky comment about Sean Dyche's coat again. Let's put a bow on the Everton match with the stats we continue to monitor throughout the season, and obviously anytime there's a victory, it always makes the stats look that much better. But in this particular case, Aston Villa improved on their away record, which has been a revelation since Unai Emery joined. And of course, Ollie Watkins adds to his tally, 8 goals now on the year. There was a set-piece goal, a penalty, technically, against the bottom 6 now, 16 from a possible 24 points. Emi Martinez gets clean sheet number 5. It's the 6th for Villa overall, but it's going to be very hard to grab Brad Friedel's record this year unless Emi goes on some kind of a run. Up next, a visit from our table neighbors, our next-door table neighbors, just 4 points behind us, Crystal Palace, a team that I feel like we've had their number at Villa Park in recent history, including that glorious 10-man 3-0 victory in the closed-door season where Anwar El Ghazi smashed it off the post and in for 3-0. But it's a strange team, Crystal Palace. They have not yet won in 2023. Tons of draws. They have some good pieces. I've always said I love Eze as a player, but he's not even starting right now. Young Olise. Then there's Edouard up front. Doucouré is a rugged number 6 who's always one late tackle away from being sent off. And then they have those two moaning Jordan Ayew and Wilfred Zaha. Although Zaha probably won't play in this game because he's injured. But even going back to the game at Selhurst Park earlier this year, we cut them open. Early doors in that game, only to chuck it away. It was a dodgy penalty against Luka Dean, which I don't think would be called anymore. It was a really frustrating game that I thought we were in. And honestly, the way we are and the way our mentality is, we have to expect to win this game on Saturday. The key, of course, will be how we approach the match, how we play, and we simply have to be more conscientious at Villa Park. Making Villa Park a fortress is a huge aspect of the Emery project, and there is no Europe at all, ever, without success at home. And you think about it, the next 6 games are all against teams below us in the table, with the exception of Chelsea, who are a mess and who are just above us. So these next 18 points, these could very well define our season. Maybe Europe isn't all that far-fetched if we run through these games and gather some points. But, you know, these next 6 games will, one way or another, decide, are we going to challenge for the top 6? Are we stuck in the middle of the table and, heaven forbid, we slip back into a relegation fight? I keep saying it, but there is nothing as satisfying as winning. When that final whistle sounds and you have more than them, all these feelings, a little bit of joy, a little bit of satisfaction, some relief, anticipation now for the next week. I will never, ever get tired of that feeling, and it will always be special each and every time. And let's hope it continues this Saturday, because to start a little run now with these next 6 games the way they are could be very interesting. Until Palace, stay warm, stay well, and as always, up the mighty Villa.